Well, hello again, everyone. It's really good to be here with everyone. And this morning we're going to talk about Dharma, but I'll get us into that topic with a reading from the Bhagavad Gita. So let me switch over to that reading here. And this is chapter 3, and it is the 35th stanza or sloka. To do one's own duty, even unsuccessfully, is better than to do someone else's duty successfully. It is better to die while trying to accomplish one's own duty than to settle for another's duty. That course is filled with danger and uncertainty. You know, look, it scares me a little bit because the real question becomes, well, okay, I want to do God's will. I want to do the duty that He has assigned to me. But exactly what is that? Can you tell me again, God? And then I promise I'll do it. And most of us don't have Krishna sitting right there next to us every moment saying, this is your exact duty. And to be honest, even when Swami Kriyananda was in the body, sometimes I would write him emails, but he would reply with very vague answers that basically was saying, figure it out yourself. And that I had to pray inwardly to him in order to figure out what was my duty, what was the right course of action in this particular instance. You know, a story's coming to mind, Dharmarajan and Dharmini in Chennai, the center leaders there. One time they prayed inwardly to Swamiji and about an answer they needed, some guidance on what was Dharma, what was the right thing to do. They very much felt clearly that this is the right way to go. We should go this direction. And then they emailed Swami just to make sure that their inner guidance wasn't a little off. And he replied back, I already told you on the inside. Amazing. Absolutely amazing story. Because it lets them know, it lets all of us know that these are real things that we are feeling with our prayers, with our intuition, and that we need to learn to believe in them. But we cannot presume on our intuition. And the thing with intuition is that it is tied deeply into the feelings, but also emotions, sentiment, past likes and dislikes, that's also tied deeply into the feelings. And so sometimes our feelings can be led astray by what we want, by what we think is right, rather than by what God wants. And we must learn to attune ourselves deeply to God and to God's will. I want to say that don't be afraid of this. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Swamiji's mother had a saying, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing poorly. And I love that saying because sometimes I get stuck in life and it's like, I don't know, should I go left? Should I go right? God, it's just easier not to go forward at all because I'm scared and I don't know what's going to happen. But that doesn't really get us anywhere. Sometimes it's okay to go slowly and figure things out for a moment, but then we have to get going forward again. And sometimes it's wrong. It's better to do something even wrong. And of course, then we realize this was wrong and we apologize and we do whatever and we go forward again. That brings me to the next point, which is, now it just slipped out of my mind. These things happen. I did write it down. I'm going to go for that this morning. And right, that was it. Interesting. Is that my next point is for us to know what is right, what is Dharma. A serious question for all of us to often ask ourselves is this good for me? Or is this good for everybody? Is this good for all? And an interesting point in that is that you are included in the all. When you think of, okay, this is good for everybody, it's not like, well, I'm going to completely sacrifice myself here and I'll starve to death, but everybody else will eat and be happy and make merry, and then God will be pleased. No, no. you're part of the all, and you too get to eat, and you get to enjoy life as much as we're allowed to in these outdoor departments. And of course, food is one of the things that we are allowed to enjoy. I'm on this 3-day orange juice fast with Diana G, so you may hear me speaking a little bit more about food than normal. But the important point here is Dharma and doing what's right for all. Master would often say, the greatest good for the greatest number. And so you don't have to go deeply and study politics and this and that when making decisions. Even it might be, let's just take a normal thing, a husband-wife relationship, that in a decision that needs to be made, is it only good for me or is it good for both of us? And of course, that's such a simple thought, but it sounds like too simple to be true. It's almost if I can read everybody's minds right now, which I can't. But if I could, that everyone's thinking, oh, you don't know about being married. It's not that simple. What's good for both of us? But truth is that simple, that we get in and we complicate it. And yes, life is hard. I admit that. And all human relationships can be difficult, but they don't have to be. Swami Kriyananda said that he never knew his parents to ever even have one argument. It's a fascinating statement to me, but it lets us know that these things are possible. Of course, his parents were both highly refined human beings. I'm sure they would have had to be for him to incarnate, having them as parents. I almost said using them as parents, which is just a funny thing to use people in that way. But they would have had to be high souls. But the point here is that we too can keep working on ourselves and keep refining ourselves and learn how to become higher and higher human beings. And that loops back to my other point that we're going to make mistakes. We don't have to beat ourselves up about them. All human beings have made mistakes. The lives of all men are dark with many shames. It's fine. It's fine. It's what it is. It's what we've all done. But the question is, can I be a better human being today than I was yesterday? And this is Dharma. And if we stick with that and we keep the ultimate goal in mind, which is to find God, then eventually we will get there and we will find God. We will become better and better human beings. We will get to a state where there's no need to argue, really, about anything. There may be times to stand up for our principles. Fine. This is something the Gita is all about. But even that, I've learned in life, it's how do I do that? Do I do it with consternation and yelling and huffing and puffing and inward distress? Or do I do it with a calm state of, this is what's happening. It might, be a little painful, but we'll all go through it and calmly we can all figure out what's the best thing, what's trying to happen. I chose this topic because I'm in a place where, along with others, I'm not making any decisions single-handedly, but there's some big decisions coming up with Devarshi Ji in the monastery, and we're out looking at pieces of land, and we're wondering, is this the piece of land that God wants us to found this new monastery on, or is that the piece of land? And how will this whole thing grow? And how do we involve others? And these are big decisions, and it makes one think about what is Dharma, what's right. And of course, in all of this, we're all praying deeply, what do you want, Master? Master, you please guide us. And then we know that everything will work out if we hold that attitude. And I won't go into other personal big decision things that are going on right now, but sometimes all of us, we do have to make big decisions. And it's good. It means that we're growing and that we are taking on more and more responsibility for Master. Okay, this gets us into the discussion on karma and dharma, but you might see a saint who does very little outwardly in this incarnation, who doesn't have to take on large amounts of outer responsibility. Swami I just forgot his name. Because that guy, he hides. I think he even hides from our thoughts. His name will come to me. Ramana Maharshi's disciple, Yogi Ramaya. Uh, he didn't really do much outwardly in this lifetime, and Swamiji met with him, and Swami could just feel so much bliss in his presence. Master met him also and said, if I was to stay in his presence, I believe it was him. It may have been Ramana Maharshi, but anyway, one of them. If I was to stay with him, I couldn't leave. That I'd just stay in India and just sit off in samadhi and just be in the bliss all the time. And Master was saying, I have to go back to America. In America, the disciples make me go out and do the work and pay the bills. He said, if I was back in India, the disciples would take care of me and build me an ashram and pay the bills. And he was thinking, I have to sit here and go, anyways, go back to samadhi. Anyway, the point of all of that was these are highly evolved souls. And so Swami asked Yogi Ramaya, why haven't you done more to spread your bliss, your joy, these teachings of Sanatana Dharma? And Yogi Ramaya's answer is quite simple. That's not what God wanted to do through this body. Now, to the whole point I've been trying to make here is that that doesn't mean that Yogi Ramaya in all of his past incarnations was just sitting under a tree the entire time. Certainly, he had all of the incarnations of learning how to lead others, learning how to have big responsibilities, learning how to move lots of energy and manage it and take care of it. All of those incarnations were for him to learn how to lead himself and for him to become a master of himself and work with his own energy. But in the beginning, it's just nonsense for us to say that, well, I don't need any outer duties. I'm just going to sit here. That because our inner energy is connected to the outer energy, so much so that every time you're practicing Kriya, for those who are Kriya bonds, that's connected to those outer planets that you see moving around. You know, there's apps that you can get on your phone these days and that you can look and you'll say, okay, that's Mars and this is Venus. And I know an astrologer in America, and he uses his knowledge of astrology plus that app to know exactly what's going on. Okay, Mars is right there, Venus is right there on the horizon. This is how they're all functioning together, and this is kind of how the outer circumstances combined with my own inner combination of energies and all of these planets, how it's all going to make the day work out. Fascinating. Vedic science and astrology combined with modern technology, very, very fascinating. We're living in a very fascinating age. I honestly don't get too much into outer astrology, but I am fascinated by the inner astrology and what's going on with Kriya, because ultimately those chakras inside of you are more powerful than the spheres we see roaming around the sky out there. And your inner realities are what actually will teach you to control the outer realities. So all these high things about inner and outer astrology, Yogi Ramaya had learned how to conquer all of that in his past incarnations. Now this brings us to, well, what does God want me to be doing in this incarnation? God wanted Yogi Ramaya to be doing that. God wanted Swamiji to be running around the world and establishing all these communities and teaching everyone master's teachings and teaching people Kriya Yoga. What does God want me to be doing? And the scary thing here, a little bit, is that in this shloka we read in the beginning, we can make mistakes. And now we're talking about an incarnation mistake where we really thought that God wanted us to be a truck driver, but it turns out God wanted us to be a plumber or whatever. I might be being a little silly here, but but with this silliness, let's carry on with it a little bit. Perhaps we were a truck driver in our last lifetime, and so we look at that and we're like, yeah, I know I can do that. That's just fine. I can do that. It's easy. But being a plumber, it's like, but I don't know about all those pipes and wrenches and water and stuff. I don't really want to go near that. That looks hard. And so just because it might come easy to us, that doesn't mean that that's what we need to grow. You know, before we incarnate, we're up there in the astral world and we're working it out with our spiritual guides, and we're working out a plan. And that your life, this incarnation, It is a mission. It's a mission on high, as one of Swamiji's songs says. And anyway, that's the life is the quest for inner joy. But you have been assigned a specific task. It's not only for your personal growth, it's also for the evolution of this planet. That God knows exactly how those two go together. And that you signed up from the astral world to say, I will go down in the middle of a pandemic and that I will do my duty, whatever it is, to help serve mankind. Even the plumber, you might not realize it, he's helping serve mankind. And we have to appreciate all human beings and all efforts that are being made on all levels where we're all serving one another. And so he chose not to be a truck driver this time, but to be a plumber. He's growing, learning how to do different skills, and he's helping the planet evolve. I'm sure, actually, I do know, honestly, from personal experience, that there are better ways to do plumbings, and plumbing itself is evolving on this planet, even as we speak. Might sound funny, but it's true. And so all of us, we have our Dharma. And this also, I'm talking about us being up in the astral world, knowing before we come down that we set a plan. This is going to be my mission from on high, and that we intend to fulfill it. That it's very wonderful if you can find a saint in this incarnation that can be the living link between you and God and can give you guidance. This person doesn't even necessarily have to be your guru. And honestly, in the presence of a true saint, you'll find your questions are just answered. Should I do this? Should I do that? You don't even have to ask the true saint, should I be a plumber or a truck driver? You just go and you sit and you meditate. And this overwhelming power that can come in and help guide you and help get your heart calm so that those thwarting cross currents of egoic desires are not coming in and churning all of that around. And you can get very still in their presence, and you can know that you are hearing the voice of God and that this is the Dharma that you should be doing. So why not? Look for the living links. Look for the saints out there. Of course, all of us here, or I'm sure most of us, have taken Paramhansa Yogananda as our guru. And so ultimately, we prayed to him, and those saints would just be functioning as a channel for the master and be helping us to find our own inner sense of clarity. So this is another kind of, I wouldn't say quote, but paraphrase of master. And that is, to do what you want to do is easy. To do what you should do, or to do what is right, is difficult. And that's the end of the paraphrase. Now I'm adding my own words here, but to do what we should do is difficult, but in the end, that's what gives this beautiful feeling of joy and a real sense of accomplishment. To go out and conquer a speed breaker, yeah, and then tell all your friends about it. I did so great today, I jumped this high. Or to go out and conquer Mount Everest. When you climb Mount Everest, then you can really feel a sense of accomplishment. And even higher than these outer senses of accomplishment are to make spiritual growth. When we realize I used to get angry over XYZ, now it's all right. It's okay. And that's a real feeling, a sense of accomplishment, where you know I've grown spiritually, that I can be peaceful absolutely no matter what. Somehow that reminds me of Swamiji's Bhav and his presence. And he had two principles when founding Ananda. One of them was Yata Dharma Tata Jaya. And this means where there's Dharma, there is victory. I used to often travel to Kolkata. We hope that that will again sometime start happening. But once a man there said, I have a piece of land, I want to give it to Ananda Sangha. You guys come here and let's make a community. Wow, I went back to Swamiji and said, Swami, this guy wants to give us a piece of land. This is great. What are we going to do? Swami said, go tell him we don't want it. I said, okay. So that's what I did. Now, why did Swami say that? because we were at that time starting a community in Pune, and we had all of our forces, all of our manpower on that. And Swamiji said, if I split our forces and try to do half in Kolkata, half in Pune, we won't succeed in Pune. And so if I can't take this property and do what I say we're going to do and what the man wants us to do with it, then that's not dharmic, so I won't do it. And some other people were saying, that's crazy, just take the land and sell it 10 years later. But that was not dharmic to Swami. And Swami always lived by this dharma. And again, this is sometimes the harder things to do, but in the end, they turn out for good. And I know that Swami knows what he's doing, even today, guiding us, and that he knew what he was doing even in the past. And our Pune community went through some challenges, and that's all right. It's for all of us to grow, and we keep attuning ourselves to Swamiji, and beautiful things are coming outwardly as well for all of us. And no matter what, that we have to hold on to the inner beauty, and that our highest dharma is to find God. When a lower duty conflicts with a higher duty, that the lower duty ceases to be a duty. So don't get too wrapped up in this outer world, worrying about the outer dharma too much. Do what's right, but don't forget that inner duty and that inner dharma. You know, I'm back to it, the OJ fast that I'm on right now. But, you know, more than conquering the mind that wants to pretend that those orange motichur ladus really do look like little oranges, um, maybe it'd be all right. More than conquering the mind and getting strong willpower and all of that, even these outer things like an orange juice fast, the real reason for it is that I can sit so easily in meditation, and that things are so clear inwardly. And yet, I'll be honest, I've been running around all outwardly these last few days on this orange juice fast because I have so much energy that can run with this, and it's been all going outward into serving the work. I think that's fine, but there's a small part of me that's saying, wait a second. When you get more energy freed up from whatever, be it Kriya Yoga or OJ fasts, what are you going to do with that energy? And don't forget, where are we really going with all of this? Because no matter what we build outwardly, 1,000 years from now, probably unless we build the Egyptian pyramids, but then we could say even 20,000 years from now, it's going to be dust. That's not what it's about, but our souls are going to go on eternally. And that's the real community that we're building. Um, and so all this cooperation that we're all doing together within Ananda Sangha, that's another dharma for all of us, that Swamiji would be pleased to see us all working together and cooperating and helping one another and thinking what's good for all, the greatest good for the greatest number. I want to end on this second principle that Swamiji built Ananda with, and that is people are more important than things. And it is so important that we take into account other people's realities. I said I wasn't going to talk about this other decision that I'm just having to make and work through and all that. But I was talking to Jayaji about it, and he said, Jemal, look at this from the other person's point of view. And I always try to live like that anyways. But, you know, people of great spiritual power, somehow their words, they have magnetism. Somehow it made me again, okay, I'll look at it from the other person's point of view. I mean, I didn't say it like that. After the meeting, I went home and thought about it again. But I realized I had not been looking at it deeply enough from the other person's point of view. And even though I had been approaching the thing with an attitude of giving and wanting to serve all and everybody, there was more that was needed, more that I could have done. And anyway, going and making sure that looking at the other people's reality, and not only the reality, I mean, this is a business thing that I'm trying my best not to talk about here. More than business realities, more than that, looking at the other people's feelings and um, and really asking ourselves, how are they doing and what's good for them? And more important than any business thing is other human beings' feelings and their consciousness and how life is going for them and what we can do to help uplift each other. You know, the beautiful thing about community, the online community that we have here that we're all sharing together on with right now, we're meditating together. The beautiful thing about community, unless you're an avatar, no human being's going to just go, woo, 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 I'm in samadhi. That we're going to go up and we're going to take a little dive and things are going to go wrong. But when we have our friends there in spiritual community that can uplift us, it makes it okay. And they help us get back on track and going upward again. And then they'll take a dive and we help them. And there's a synergy, there's a beautiful energy that forms. And we are family. This is Master's family. We are family. And this is what family does. And this spiritual family is even more important than your earthly family. They're important too. I'm not saying run away from them. But this spiritual family, we incarnate again and again, and we find each other. Even if you happen to be born in the strangest place on earth, you'll find your spiritual family again, and we will continue to uplift each other and help each other find the light. I could tell more stories on how that works, but it is time. So let us close